The colony of Brookside Station was quiet in a way that felt dangerous. The air shimmered with heat, and dust blew across the metal walkways. Most of the buildings were old and battered. The people who lived there had learned to be tough, because life on the colony was never easy. Food was scarce, water even more so, and the warning sirens of alien raids made sleep a rare comfort. A small boy named Evan ran across one of the metal walkways. He was only 7, but his legs were fast and strong. His brown hair stuck to his forehead from sweat, and his clothes were worn and patched in many places. He had learned to take care of himself, but he was never completely without fear. Today, his fear was wrapped around someone else. He found Lily sitting near the edge of the walkway, her legs dangling over the side. She was 12, a little older than him, and taller. Her hair was dark and tied in a messy braid. She always looked calm, but Evan knew she was just good at hiding her feelings. He ran up to her, panting, and held her hand tightly. "We have to go," Evan said, his small voice trembling. "The alarm's coming again." Lily looked at him and smiled softly. "I know. Don't worry, Evan. We'll be safe." But Evan shook his head. "I don't want to be separated this time. I don't want to lose you." Lily laughed lightly, but there was a nervous edge to it. "We won't. We're staying together, okay?" Evan swallowed hard. He wanted to be brave, like the older kids who trained for fights against the alien raiders. But inside, his chest was tight with fear. The colony had already been attacked twice this month. People had died, and their families had vanished. He had seen it all, and he knew the aliens didn't care who was strong or weak. He stared at Lily's calm face and felt a sudden rush of courage. "I promise," he said, looking straight into her eyes. "I'll marry you when I grow up. I'll come back for you, no matter what." Lily's eyes widened, and she blinked. For a moment, she didn't know what to say. "Evan, you're just a little boy." "I don't care," Evan said firmly. "I mean it." Lily smiled, shaking her head. "You're serious?" "Yes," Evan whispered. "I'll come back, I promise." For a few seconds, the dust and heat of the colony seemed to fade away. There was just the two of them, standing on the edge of the walkway, holding hands. The world felt a little less dangerous, just for a moment. Then the sirens began. A loud, wailing sound filled the air, echoing off the metal walls and making people shout. The ground shook as distant explosions rocked the colony. The aliens had returned. "Come on," Lily shouted, grabbing Evan's hand. They ran toward the nearest safe shelter, their feet clanging against the metal floor. Around them, people were running, shouting, and carrying what they could. Smoke rose from the damaged parts of the colony, and sparks flew from broken wires. Evan's heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to be brave, but every step felt heavy. He glanced at Lily, who was running with surprising speed. She was strong, but even she looked tense. They reached the shelter just as a small explosion shook the building. Dust and pieces of metal rained down around them. Inside, the shelter was crowded. Families huddled together, children crying quietly, and older people tried to calm them. Evan squeezed Lily's hand, and she returned the gesture, giving him a small nod. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I will be," Evan said, though he wasn't sure. His small body trembled with fear and adrenaline. The adults in the shelter spoke quickly, giving orders. Some people checked the weak walls, making sure the shelter could hold. Others distributed water rations or helped those who were hurt. Evan watched it all, trying to understand how the older people stayed so calm. He wanted to be like them. A loud crash echoed outside, and the building shook again. Dust fell from the ceiling. A few children screamed. Evan pulled Lily close. "They're still out there," he whispered. "Yes," she said, "but we're safe here." For now, Evan took a deep breath. He remembered his promise to Lily. He would protect her. He didn't know how, but he knew he had to try. Hours passed, and the shelter stayed mostly quiet. Outside, explosions continued, and the colony shook with each strike. Evan and Lily sat together, sharing a small piece of bread they had saved from their lunch. They didn't speak much. Words felt useless when the sound of destruction was so close. Evan looked at Lily and felt a surge of determination. He didn't want to run away from danger anymore. He wanted to be strong. He wanted to keep his promise. Lily, he said finally, his voice steady, I'm going to get strong. I'm going to learn how to fight. I'll come back for you. Just like I promised. Lily looked at him, surprised by his words. Evan, you're just a little boy. I'll grow up, he said simply, and I'll come back. For a long time, they sat together in the dim light of the shelter. The adults whispered about the colony, the aliens, and the chances of survival. Evan listened but didn't really understand everything. What he did understand was that he had made a promise, and promises matter more than fear. By the time the sirens finally stopped and the sky grew dark with smoke, it was clear that the colony had suffered heavy damage. Buildings were burned, and parts of the walkways had collapsed. People gathered in small groups, checking on one another. Some had lost everything. Evan and Lily stayed close. They were dirty, tired, and hungry, but they were alive. And in that small, broken shelter, Evan made a silent vow to himself. No matter what happened, he would find a way to keep his promise to Lily. The next morning, the evacuation ships arrived. They were large and noisy, carrying people away from the ruins of the colony. Families were reunited, while others were forced to leave behind everything they had. Evan clung to Lily's hand as they were separated into different groups. He looked into her eyes, trying to memorize every detail of her face. I'll come back, he whispered. I promise, Lily nodded, tears in her eyes. I'll wait for you, Evan. I'll wait. Then, before he could say anything else, soldiers led him away. The last thing he saw was Lily standing there, her braid swinging in the wind. Watching him disappear. The journey to the refugee ship was long. Evan tried to stay brave, but the fear never left. He thought about Lily constantly. He thought about the promise. Every time the ship shook or alarms sounded, he held onto the memory of her face and repeated the words in his mind. I'll come back. I'll keep my promise. The ship traveled through space, leaving Brookside Station behind. Evan saw the colony shrink into a distant dot of light. He felt a strange mix of sadness and determination. He had survived, but he had left something important behind. 4 years after that, Evan trained and learned everything he could about survival, fighting, and the harshness of the universe. But in the back of his mind, there was always one thought, Lily. One day, he would return, and he would keep the promise he had made as a little boy on a dying colony. Even as he grew stronger, braver, and smarter, the memory of that day stayed with him. The dust, the explosions, the heat, the fear, they all reminded him of what he was fighting for. And somewhere far away, on a distant planet, Lily waited, not knowing if Evan had survived, not knowing if the promise would ever be fulfilled. But she waited because she had believed in him once, and a part of her always would. Evan's journey had only just begun. Evan woke to the sound of alarms and the cold metal floor beneath him. The refugee ship rocked slightly as it passed through a field of space debris. Outside the small window, the stars moved slowly past, distant and cold. He had learned long ago that space could feel empty and lonely, but for Evan, it also felt full of possibility. He had grown taller now. His brown hair was cut short, and his eyes were sharp, always scanning everything around him. The soft, scared boy who had clung to Lily's hand on Brookside Station was gone. He had trained hard every day, running drills, lifting weights, and learning how to survive in harsh conditions. The humans on the ship called them young recruits, but Evan felt older than most adults. He had to. The ship's captain, a tall man named Carl, walked past him. Evan, breakfast, then training. Don't be late. Yes, sir, Evan said, grabbing a small piece of bread. He ate quickly, tasting the dryness of the food, but he didn't care. Food was fuel, and fuel was necessary for survival. After breakfast, the recruits lined up in the training hall. The room was long, filled with equipment and tools designed to test endurance, strength, and reflexes. Evan stood at the front because he always arrived early. His reputation had grown on the ship. He was known as someone who could survive the impossible, but he didn't let it make him proud. It made him work harder. The instructor, a stern woman named Clara, shouted, "Move faster. You are not here to sit and look pretty. You are here to survive. Evan ran through the drills. He climbed walls, lifted heavy weights, and practiced combat drills with simulated alien attackers. His muscles ached, his lungs burned, but he kept going. Every step reminded him of Lily. He pictured her standing on Brookside Station, waiting for him. That memory was stronger than any pain. During a break, Evan sat on the floor, wiping sweat from his brow. Another recruit, a boy named Logan, sat beside him. You never slow down, huh? Logan said, breathing hard. I don't have time to slow down, Evan said simply. I have a promise to keep. Logan frowned. A promise? Evan nodded, staring out the small window. A long time ago, on a dying colony, I promised someone I would come back for her. I can't forget that. I can't let her down. Logan looked at him for a moment, unsure what to say. Most of the recruits talked about glory, money, or the chance to travel to new worlds. Evan thought about Lily. That was his goal, his reason for surviving. The days on the ship passed quickly. Evan's life became a rhythm of training, drills, and study. He learned about alien species, space navigation, and survival on hostile planets. He read old reports of colonies that had failed and battles humans had fought across the galaxy. Every lesson was a reminder that life was dangerous, but humans could survive anything. Evan became strong, faster, and smarter. He learned how to handle weapons, how to make traps, and how to move silently. The instructors noticed his skill and determination. They began to test him more, giving him challenges that most recruits failed. But Evan succeeded every time. His mind was sharp, and his body was prepared for extremes. At night, Evan often sat in his small cabin, staring at the stars. He wrote letters to Lily in his mind, even though he had no way to send them. He described the planets he had visited, the lessons he had learned, and the dangers he had faced. Most of all, he reminded himself of the promise he had made as a child, years past. Evan became a young man. His body was lean but muscular, and his movements were precise. He had scars from training accidents and minor battles, but he wore them with pride. Each scar was a reminder of what he had survived, and each one strengthened his determination. The instructors gave him a special assignment one day. Evan, Clara said, we are sending you to a remote colony to assist in its defense. The aliens have been active there. We believe you can handle it. Evan felt a familiar surge of excitement and fear. This was the first time he would return to a place where humans were in danger. And he knew the importance of his role. He was not just training anymore. He was living the life he had prepared for. He arrived at the remote colony, a world called Greyfield. The planet was rough and barren, with rocky terrain and thin air. The humans there lived in small settlements, relying on their skills and courage to survive. Evan felt at home immediately. He liked the challenge of hard worlds. Humans had to adapt to survive, and he was ready. The colony leader, a woman named Mara, greeted him. You're Evan, right? I've heard about you. I'm here to help, Evan said, bowing his head slightly. Good, Mara said. We've had a lot of trouble with alien scouts. They've attacked our mining operations and supply lines. We need someone like you. Evan listened carefully as Mara explained the situation. He took notes, asked questions, and began planning strategies immediately. He noticed the fear in the colony, but he also saw hope. The humans there were tough, but they needed guidance over the next weeks. Evan trained the colonists in defense techniques, survival skills, and quick thinking under pressure. He led small missions to scout alien movements, always returning safely. He pushed the humans to work harder than they thought they could, and they began to respect him. One evening, after a long day, Evan sat outside on a rocky hill, looking at the stars. He thought about Brookside Station, about Lily, and the promise he had made. He realized that every lesson, every battle, and every challenge had been preparing him for this moment. He was stronger now, ready to face anything, and he would return to her, no matter how long it took. While he stared at the stars, a small transport ship arrived with supplies. Among the crates, he found messages from other colonies, news of battles, and reports of alien activity. But one message stood out. It was old, from a colony far away, mentioning a girl who had survived Brookside Station. Her name was Lily. Evan's heart raced. She was alive. She had survived. The memory of her small, smiling face flooded his mind. All the years of training, all the pain and struggle suddenly had a new meaning. He had to find her. The following days, Evan made careful plans to travel across the galaxy. He knew it would not be easy. The aliens were everywhere, and the humans were scattered. But Evan had become a human who could survive the impossible. Every challenge was a test, and he was ready to face them all. One night, as he prepared for his journey, Mara came to him. "You're brave," she said quietly. "Not many would take this risk." "I have a reason," Evan replied, looking at the stars. "A promise. I have to keep it," Mara smiled. "Then I won't stop you. Go find what you're looking for." Evan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He had trained his body and mind for years. He had faced dangers that would have broken most people. But this mission was different. It was personal. It was about a promise made on a dying colony long ago, a promise he would never forget. The next morning, Evan left Greyfield in a small, fast ship. He navigated through asteroid fields, dodged alien patrols, and survived the harsh cold of space. He relied on his training, his instincts, and the memory of Lily. Every star he passed reminded him of his goal. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Evan faced many dangers. He fought alien scouts, repaired his ship in the middle of nowhere, and survived storms on icy planets. But through it all, he never wavered. He thought of Lily every day, and the promise he had made gave him strength no weapon or training could provide. Finally, after months of searching, Evan reached a small settlement on the edge of a quiet planet. The records suggested that Lily had been there recently. His heart raced as he landed his ship and stepped onto the surface. The air was thin, the wind cold, but Evan barely noticed. He was close. He walked through the settlement, asking questions quietly. Some people remembered a girl who had lived there, a brave girl who had helped rebuild homes after the alien raids. The descriptions matched Lily perfectly. Evan's heart beat faster. He was close. After years of training, battles, and survival, he was finally on the path to fulfill the promise he had made as a little boy on a dying colony. He paused at the edge of the settlement and looked at the stars. He whispered to himself, "I'm coming, Lily. I'll find you. I promise." Evan had grown from a scared little boy into a strong young man, a human who could survive the deadliest worlds. But the most important challenge still lay ahead: finding Lily, keeping the promise, and proving that humans were capable of more than anyone had ever imagined. And for the first time in years, Evan felt a sense of hope. The galaxy was dangerous, cruel, and full of enemies. But he was ready. He had survived everything the universe had thrown at him, and now he would survive everything for her. Evan had been traveling for weeks across the outer colonies. Each planet he visited was different. Some were rocky and cold, others were dry deserts with thin air. Most were sparsely populated, but everywhere he went, there were signs of alien attacks. Broken buildings, scorched ground, and abandoned settlements reminded him that humans had to fight to survive. He had learned to move quietly, to watch for danger, and to trust his instincts. Every step, every decision was calculated. Yet, despite all his training, there was one thing he could not prepare for: seeing Lily again. The thought made his heart race, and his mind replayed her face from years ago. He remembered the day he promised her, the heat of the dust, and the fear in her eyes. That memory drove him forward on a small, icy planet called Frostvale. Evan landed his ship at a settlement near the mountains. The wind howled as he stepped onto the frozen ground. The colony here had been attacked recently, leaving the buildings half buried in snow and ice. Evan pulled his coat tight around him and moved toward the main settlement. People glanced at him as he passed, wary but curious. He asked quietly about a girl who had survived Brookside Station, someone brave and skilled at fixing machines. The villagers looked at each other, then nodded toward a building at the edge of the settlement. "She was here," one of the men said. "Worked with us for a few months, then left for another colony. Left in a hurry too. Said she had to help people." Evan's chest tightened. That sounded like Lily. He clenched his fists. Which way did she go? He asked, voice low. The man pointed toward the mountains. Follow the ridge. You'll find an old transport path. That's the direction she took. Evan nodded and set off immediately. The wind cut at his face, but he didn't care. Every step brought him closer. The ice crunched under his boots, and the mountains rose higher and higher. His ship was safe behind him, but he didn't stop. Nothing would stop him now. As he moved, he thought about the years he had spent training. Every battle, every injury, every challenge had been preparing him for this moment. He had become faster, stronger, and smarter than most humans. He had survived worlds where the air was deadly and the enemies merciless. But he knew this challenge was different. This was not about survival alone. It was about keeping a promise made long ago. After several hours, Evan reached the ridge and spotted a figure in the distance. A woman was working near a damaged vehicle, her dark braid swinging in the wind. She moved with skill, repairing the machinery despite the cold. His heart jumped. It was her. Lily, he called, his voice trembling slightly. The woman froze, turning toward him. Evan took a few steps closer. Her eyes widened in shock. Evan? She whispered. Yes, he said, moving closer. It's me. I promised I'd come back. She looked at him, unsure what to do. He was not the small boy she had known. He was tall, strong, and confident. His face had scars, but they made him seem even more determined. She felt a mix of fear and relief. You came back, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I told you I would, Evan replied softly. I promised, and I always keep my promises. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind whipped around them, carrying the sound of distant storms. Finally, Lily stepped closer. I never thought you would find me, she said. I had to, Evan said. I trained for this. I survived everything for this moment. I'm here now, Lily. Before they could speak more, a loud roar echoed through the mountains. Evan's instincts kicked in immediately. He looked around and saw alien scouts descending from the ridge above. Their shapes were dark and menacing, with sharp limbs and glowing eyes. They had tracked the humans here. Get inside, Evan shouted, pulling Lily toward the damaged vehicle. We need to defend ourselves. Lily hesitated. I can help, she said, picking up a tool. Stay close, Evan said. Follow my lead. The aliens attacked quickly. They moved with speed and intelligence, striking at the humans with precision. Evan didn't panic. He had trained for this. He fought with skill, dodging strikes, and striking back with his weapons. His movements were fast, precise, and deadly. Every blow showed the strength of a human who had survived the deadliest worlds. Lily helped where she could, using her tools to create traps and barriers. She worked beside Evan, and together, they made a strong team. The aliens hesitated, surprised by the humans' skill and coordination. Evan realized then that humans were feared not because of their size, but because of their courage and intelligence. Hours passed as they fought. The storm made it harder to see, but Evan's instincts guided him. He protected Lily, blocking attacks and drawing the aliens' attention away from her. He could feel the power of humanity in every move. They were relentless, adaptive, and unafraid. Finally, as the sun began to rise over the mountains, the aliens retreated. Evan stood panting, his body bruised but unbroken. Lily ran to him, eyes wide with admiration and relief. You were amazing, she said. Evan shook his head slightly. We survived together. That's what matters. Lily smiled, her hand brushing against his arm. You really came back for me. I can't believe it. I told you, Evan said, his voice soft. I promised, and nothing could stop me. They stood together, looking at the mountains. The storm had passed, leaving the snow sparkling in the morning light. For the first time in years, Evan felt a sense of peace. He had found Lily, and together, they had survived an attack that would have killed most people. Lily looked at him, studying his face. She saw the boy she had known, but also the man he had become. Strong, brave, and unstoppable. Evan, she said quietly, you've changed, but you're still the same boy who promised me. Evan smiled. I never stopped being that boy. That promise kept me alive. That promise made me stronger." She reached out and took his hand. "I'm glad you kept it." The moment was brief, because danger still lingered in the mountains. But for now, they were safe. Evan knew that the galaxy was dangerous, and the aliens would return. But he also knew that humans were capable of surviving anything. With skill, courage, and determination, they could face the deadliest enemies and win. As they prepared to leave the planet, Evan thought about the future. He had grown strong, trained by the harshest worlds, and survived battles that would have killed most people. But he also realized that strength was not enough. Humanity's greatest power was their heart, their will, and their ability to fight for what they loved, and Evan's heart belonged to Lily. The two of them left Frostvale together, traveling to other colonies to help rebuild and defend against alien threats. Every planet they visited showed the same thing. Humans were relentless. They survived the impossible, adapted to every challenge, and grew stronger because of it. Evan and Lily became a symbol of that strength. The humans who met them saw not just skill and courage, but hope. Hope that no matter how hard life was, humans could endure. They could overcome enemies, survive deadly worlds, and protect the ones they loved. One evening, as they rested on a quiet planet with green hills and calm rivers, Lily turned to Evan. "Do you remember that day on Brookside Station?" she asked, smiling softly. Evan nodded. "Every day. That promise never left me. And now you're here," she said. "You kept it. I told you I would," he said. "I always keep my promises." For the first time in years, the fear, the cold, and the loneliness felt distant. They had survived the impossible. Together, the galaxy was vast and dangerous. But Evan knew that humans could face it all. With courage, strength, and heart, nothing could stop them. And with Lily by his side, he felt unstoppable. The journey was far from over. Many challenges remained. Aliens still roamed, colonies still needed protection, and the universe remained a dangerous place. But Evan and Lily were ready. Humans had survived impossible odds before, and they would do it again. Evan looked at the stars, feeling the weight of all he had experienced. He had grown from a small boy who had made a promise into a human, who could survive the deadliest worlds. But more importantly, he had returned to keep that promise, and in the quiet of the night, as the stars shone above, Evan whispered to himself, "I'm not done yet. We will survive. We will grow stronger. And I'll keep every promise I ever made." Lily took his hand, and together they stared at the stars, ready to face whatever the universe had in store.